Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by two of our international and continental contributors. It's Anthony Maguire and it's Sean Connolly. We're here at half time. It's nothing each. It's a bit of a stalemate, obviously, as the scoreline would suggest. Not a great deal to talk about, but I'm going to start off with the penalty shout. Anthony, what was your take on it?
Well, VAR sort of dismissed it fairly quickly. Michael Stewart was adamant it was a penalty.
Fair play.
I had a quick look at the rules of the game, just so I can sort of say, so point of contact for a push, trip, that sort of thing. So if it initiates outside the box, then a free kick is the right decision. I think the contact does start just before they step into the box and then sort of continues to a degree. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it seemed to be reviewed very, very quickly. And as I just said off air, if that had been a Dundee shout for a penalty, I dare say maybe there'd been a few more looks at it. But yeah, from the limited angles, very hard to sort of say unequivocally. But yeah, like I said, maybe just a slither outside of the box, but that's just me.
Well, I'm going to take this and pass it on to Sean in a second. Sean is a referee. So I always like to ask him for his take on these things. But before I do that, here's the disclaimer. We're all Celtic fans, right? And with that comes a certain amount of bias. That's exactly what happens in all walks of life, unconscious or otherwise. And I think over the last few weeks, we've been talking about some of the bizarre decisions in Scottish football. And then obviously the conspiratorial amongst us will point to certain things like, oh, well, he is or has been a season ticket holder at a certain club. Tonight, I just felt it was kind of like, it was a 10-second decision, Sean. It wasn't as though they poured over the decision. Michael Stewart, fair play to him. He was adamant that was a penalty. So was I. I'm biased. Give us your referee's view on it, Sean.
Well, yeah, the rule is it's a clear foul, and the rule is if the foul continues into the box, then it's a penalty. So it goes to the advantage of the attacker. I feel like the VAR dismissed it very quickly, which I assumed meant that they'd switched to the long, like the kind of offside camera view, if you will, and had a look along the line. But then that was never shared with the TV audience. So I don't actually, if I'd been able to see that, I'd have been able to give a more definitive answer. But because the camera was like, there was no depth perception on the camera angle that they showed on the TV, it wasn't clear. From the mucky angles that it did show, it looked like a penalty, but again, it might be that his hands come off before that goes into the corner of the box. I'm not sure, but I can also see why the referee on field hasn't given it, because it's very clearly outside at the start, and it's hard to actually see that it's continuing in. But yeah, I'd be interested to see that one back, the VAR replay.
Yeah, it would be good. I'm going to bring in some of the comments coming through. There wasn't a great amount of chances there. I noted Vuka nearly gets on the end of a Jan cross. There was a Rio strike, which was comfortably saved. There was a slice by Rio Atati at the back post as well. Maybe should have done better with that one. But it's not like been a game that has been full of chances at either end. Dundee have had a few breakaways, Anthony. Not a great deal to talk about. So let's start off with our new addition in Vuka. There's a lot of comments coming through in relation to his performance. How do you think he did in his first 45?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to judge a guy on 45 minutes of football with a half-empty stadium. But yeah, jury's out, to be honest. First couple of times tried to take on two players at once, did it a couple of times, and then since then has evaluated his contributions, more sort of passing inside to Callum McGregor a fair bit. Yeah, okay, but it looks like a player who hasn't played a lot of football, to be perfectly honest. Haven't really seen that explosive pace, except for that one time where I think it was Chivinchara sort of gets the sort of flick on and we sort of get some joy. And that's where we probably have been getting a bit of joy, is when centre forwards linking up. And there's been a few times we've been able to sort of get past their defensive line, and we've looked like to try and get in behind. And then, as per usual, this entire season, that final ball's just been lacking. Yang's had a couple of chances to put some crosses in, been poor. KT probably the same to a certain degree crosswise. So yeah, like I said, Vuka, yeah, early days, but yeah, nothing that would suggest to me at the moment that he is our solution at right wing.
Well, this is the thing. I always remember for lengthy spells, and I'm not talking Greg Taylor eras. I'm talking going back years and years. Left back was a problem position for Celtic, and it seems as though now, Sean, we do have a bit of a problematic area in the team, and it is a right wing area. That's not taking a dig at our new man, by the way, because I agree with Anthony. You can't judge him after 45. I thought there was a few things he did really well, and it looked as though he was teaming up quite a bit with Araujo, who we'll get to in a minute, because he's my new hero. He's taken over from Tony Ralston. He's my new favourite player, I think. But yeah, there was a couple of moments, and you remember the bad ones, Sean. You remember when the ball comes to him and no one's anywhere near him, and it just kind of like bounces off his boot and goes out the park, as happened in the first half. But as Anthony says, he's not had a great deal of football. And it's one of these moves where I think there's going to have to be a bit of patience with this guy.
Yeah, there was one that comes over from a great height with great pace, and he absolutely pulls it out of the sky, and it was like, wow, great technical touch.
Yeah.
And then you're right, 5 minutes later, that's an easier ball, and it's just like it just runs under his foot and just out of play. I agree with it was frustrating as well. His decision making, like in the first 10 minutes, he's trying to do too much, trying to take on two players when it's absolutely not there. It didn't look like he had the, I don't know, maybe that trying to impress thing was working against him, because he wasn't playing the sensible kind of creative patience that you need against a low block. You know, he was up against two guys all the time. He did seem to wise up to it and started playing back. So he's kind of coming into it a little bit, but yeah, it's hard to judge him too much. But yes, he fitted into the overall frustration of balls go into the box to Dundee defenders, and that's seems to be the theme of this game and the last few games that we've played at the moment, and it's very, very frustrating at the moment. Even a couple towards the end that Van Chara got on the end of, they weren't in strong positions and they weren't strong headers with good pace, so it's been not much to sing about. I think the most entertaining moment of the half was when your favourite player, Araujo, does a little overhead, I don't know what you call it, backflip, backwards roll, and flicks the ball out when he's under pressure. I was disappointed that resulted in a loss of possession, because it was very good creativity and play under pressure.
The thing that I'll give him in that respect is he is very good at retaining possession, and he almost did with that unorthodox little backward roll, if there is such a thing. I certainly will not be trying it anytime soon, but I have been really impressed with him. And you're right to point out that Mvuka had a fantastic bit of skill where he pulls that ball out the air. There was 2 occasions where he's tried outswinging crosses, isn't he? And what you're looking for there is, you know, Chara maybe running from the edge of the box and getting it just on the penalty spot with a header, or, you know, that kind of thing. It's just not come off from him. One of the other players we spoke about before the game, Anthony, was indeed Paulo Bernardo. He was the guy responsible for the wee dink over the top for Rio at the back post. How's he done overall for you, do you think? Because he doesn't get a great deal of game time, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't, and we discussed this sort of pre-match. He's doing the work right. He's getting from box to box. He has been a couple of times where he has been in the box. Timing's probably been off in terms of making the run. So obviously, that's probably some Arnie angles are starting to add to his game, but that comes from a run of consistently playing in the team, and Bernardo's not had that, so it's a little bit disjointed. And then, like I said, the service today has not really been there. And fair play to Dundee. They're defending the box stoutly at the moment. They're putting a power of work right enough. So I do expect that they'll hopefully probably fall in a hole at some point in the second half. But if it remains nothing each, then it gives them something to cling on to. It's that old chestnut. But Bernardo, like I said, working hard. I think the midfield, people in the comments are after Hatate as well. I think the midfield's working. I think there's enough work right there. It's just probably lacking that little bit of quality, and just probably try to pick the low percentage option. Like, there's a couple of times try to dink that ball over the top. It's a very, very difficult thing to pull off, and if it comes off, it ends up being a wonder goal. But it's just maybe, can we not maybe play the percentages a wee bit? But yeah, for me, Bernardo, just like I say, getting forward, but it's just the timing of the runs. But like I said, the service isn't quite there either.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the cameras have been trained on the Celtic director's box, which is something that happens game to game at Celtic Park, Sean. Someone texted me to say Gordon Strachan's looking quite cosy and what could be his new chairman's seat. He is, of course, the technical director at Dundee, but there's been a rumour circulating that he might be the man that Celtic go for chairman. Have you heard that?
No, I don't know. No.
Because
jobs for the boys again.
Well, my concern with that really is he a chairman? I mean, I've got a huge amount of respect for Gordon Strachan. The job he did at a time where we were actually, cutting back in terms of our spending, our wages, our transfer fees. The job he did was incredible as a manager. But I'm not really looking for a chairman or indeed a CEO who hasn't had that job in the past and doesn't have a track record within that position. So personally, I hope that's not the case, but I do have a great deal of respect for Gordon Strachan. I'm going to come through some of these comments coming in. There's one there. Vuka has shown potential. It's one of the ones. Sometimes you watch the game and then you see the comments, like you were saying there about Rio. Rio's not stood out, good or bad. I just think he's been a bit indifferent, really. But I certainly wouldn't have thought he's had a bad game. And Vuka, you keep him on, Sean, don't you? You give him at least an hour, 65 minutes, and you try and get him to a point where he maybe does try that, getting past a man or two and it comes off, or one of these crosses, somebody actually connects with it. I think you keep him on and you try and build his confidence in the second half.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And in regards to Hatate as well, he's, as much as we've been largely ineffective, he's probably been the most effective of the ineffective players that are in the front six anyway. I think overall we've struggled. I know Anthony's referenced the dink, they try to dink in behind, which is fair enough. I think that's, sometimes you need to do something a bit different, but I've actually been quite frustrated as well with the passing, the simple passing, quote unquote, has actually been quite bobbly and slow as well. Like if you think back to the Dundee United game where we win 4-0, like the passing is much more crisp and fast. And we've not really had that today. It's been when they do take a pass, like players are having to wait for it and it's bobbling up and it's taking an extra touch to get under control. So, there's different ways to break down a low block and neither of them are working at the moment. It might end up coming down to a set piece or a counter attack. And
Premier Sports are just showing a still image there of Chivenshare's foot on the line with the hands on the back. So that would suggest that it probably should have been a penalty. So you have to wonder why VAR dismissed that so quickly. So you start, Andrew Dallas and all the rest of it, you start getting a little bit. Yeah, it becomes a little bit much, doesn't it?
It does, Anthony, because you just want people to do their job. I don't want to sound like Roy Keane here, but I mean, you've got a job to do. At least watch it a few times from every available angle. You've not done that because the speed at which that was decided, for it going to a VAR review and that basically, boom, no chance. That's been the response. So they haven't actually poured over this. And this is a broadcaster looking at it from a certain angle and just taking a wee bit of time there. And they have shown that was a penalty kick. These are the things that we will constantly speak about. It doesn't matter if we're getting beat, we're drawn, or we're winning the game 6-0. We will talk about that type of thing. And
Benjamin Negrin incoming.
Luke and Bernardo are both off after we spoke about that.
There we go. And Negrin coming in for a goal. Yeah,
Luke and Bernardo both off.
Well, that's Jamesy Forrest coming on for Mvuka. I mean, how long? We'll be sitting here in 5 years' time and Forrest will be getting called on for the right wing position. There's Negrin. Wouldn't bet against him getting a goal. His record's been tremendous this season. Go and enjoy the second half, ladies and gentlemen, and come and join us at full time, where I will be speaking to Anthony and Sean on a Celtic State of Mind.